that the sitting be adjourned to give time for the Senate members to go through a joint report of the National Assembly Departmental Committee on Justice and Legal Affairs and the Senate Standing Committee on Justice, Legal Affairs, and Human Rights on the Constitution of Kenya. That enabled the Speaker of the Senate to adjourn that particular sitting that was to be recapped this afternoon. So the objective of the bill is to amend the Constitution of Kenya to address issues arising from its implementation, specifically the need to resolve issues of divisive elections and promote gender equity in governance, strengthen the structure of devolution and increase resource allocation to the counties, broaden mechanisms for all the people of Kenya, benefit from economic growth, harmonize certain roles and functions of the bicameral legislature, fortify national ethos by specifying the responsibilities of citizens, and strengthen accountability on public resources and the fight against corruption. In embarking on this constitutional amendment process, the people of Kenya reaffirm their conviction in the words of the preamble to the Constitution, asserting the supremacy of the Almighty God in shaping the destiny of the nation. The proposed constitutional reforms originate from the views of citizens expressed through the Building Bridges Initiative, that is the BBI. Through the BBI, citizens from all corners of the country shared their concerns and views on issues ranging from their responsibilities and rights, national ethos and responsible citizenship, corruption, productivity and shared prosperity, devolution, divisive elections, ethnic antagonism, inclusivity and security, among others. This bill focuses on these issues with an overriding objective of promoting a cohesive society and to further the ideals of a united, prosperous, and just nation. The bill seeks to amend Chapter 2 of the Constitution on formative aspects of the Republic to address a regional integration, cohesion, shared prosperity, and the centrality of the economy. The aspiration is to enhance Kenya's standing and leadership in the region and to balance production and sharing. Clause 2 of the bill proposes to insert a new article, 10A, regional integration and cohesion, into the Constitution to recognize integration and cohesion of the Eastern African region and Africa as integral towards achieving national economic goals. The provision obligates the state to take policy and legislative measures for the attainment of this ideal. Clause 3 of the bill proposes to insert a new article, 11A. Economy and shared prosperity. Well, the Speaker of the Senate, Kenneth Lusaka, has just entered the chambers. I leave you for this live broadcast, which is brought to you in partnership with Kenya Broadcasting Corporation and the Parliamentary Broadcasting Unit. My name is Kamcha Menza. Good afternoon.
Let us pray. Almighty God, we beseech you to behold with your abundant favor and blessings us, your servants, whom you have been pleased to call to leadership positions in this republic. We seek guidance to treat and consider all matters that shall come under our deliberation in so just and faithful a manner as to advance the peace, prosperity, and welfare of our country and of those whose interests you have committed to our charge. Amen. Okay, honorable senators, welcome back. I'm sure we have had time to to go through the Senator Cheriot.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you for listening to us earlier in the day. But I want to bring to your attention something that has just happened, which perhaps will require your direction and guidance. I received a distress call from one of our colleagues, Senator Mithika Linturi. If you do recall in the morning, he raised a point of order on his reading and understanding of Article 257, and you did promise that we first dispense with the earlier matter, which was whether to adjourn or not, then we will respond to it. This afternoon, on his way to Parliament, he was stopped by a gentleman who claimed to be police officers from the DCI. They asked him to alight from his car, and he's now in a car headed to, he says he's headed to DCI headquarters, and he doesn't understand what his crime is. You will recall, Mr. Speaker, that 3 months ago, we had the IG seated where Senator Malala is seated, and the DCI seated where our colleague Senator Pereno are seated. We were discussing the unfortunate events of what had happened during the revenue formula debacle. And they made a commitment before this House that anytime senators are considering such monumental issues, if there was an issue that warranted them being arrested, it will be first with consultations of a speaker. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, I'd wish to know from you whether you are aware why Senator Mithika Linturi has been arrested. And if you're not aware, how do we proceed knowing that we are about to enter that silly season again, like we did during the revenue sharing formula, where colleagues used to be picked one by one. We had to drive to places like Kiserian and Kitengela to look for some of our colleagues and protect them. So, Mr. Speaker, we need your guidance so that we know how to behave in the next few days if this is what we are going to be through as we discuss this very important matter. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, please guide the House on how do we handle such matters.
Senator Khaniri.
Mr. Speaker, the issue being raised by the Senator for Kericho, my good brother Senator Cheriot, is extremely important. It should be noted, Mr. Speaker, that an attack on one of us, it is an attack on all of us. And Mr. Speaker, if we let this go on unabated, then today it's Linturi, tomorrow it's James Orengo, the day after is Pogisho or Khaniri. Mr. Speaker, we must stand and speak with one voice as a Senate, that if indeed our colleague has been apprehended, arrested in line of duty, just for performing his constitutional duty, then as a Senate we must protest. Some of us will not participate in the debate this afternoon until it is explained to us what is happening to our colleague. So, Mr. Speaker, you are the leader of this House, and we are urging you, Mr. Speaker, to take this matter seriously. And for me, as a person, I'm declaring that if that is not explained, then I will boycott. I will not participate in the sessions that we are going to have this afternoon and even tomorrow.
Senator Mutula Kilonzo Jr.
Mr. Speaker, this matter is so serious. And Mr. Speaker, if Senator Linturi has been arrested in the course of duty, we should all leave this chamber. It's not fair. And Mr. Speaker, I participated in the commission or the inquiry onto the arrest of Senator Malala, Senator of Bomet, Langat, and Lutumbesi. Mr. Speaker, since that time to now, nothing came out of those arrests. It was just pure harassment. At that time, Mr. Speaker, in fact, at that particular moment, the resolution that was made by then the chair, together with the gentlemen from the National Police Service, including the DCI and the IG, was that there will be what is called a liaison committee between the office of the Speaker, of the Speakers, both houses, and the police, so that if there is something that they need from a member of parliament, including Senate, they would first of all make the necessary inquiries before arresting a person in the middle of proceedings. It's just totally unacceptable. It's wrong. And it doesn't matter what he believes in, because this chamber is supposed to be a chamber of debate. This is not a choir where we are supposed to agree or sing the same song. People are supposed to debate and vote. And it will be misconstrued, Mr. Speaker. Even if there was something that they were looking for, it will be misconstrued that they have arrested him so that they either reduce the number of people here or they intimidate the people who have an alternative view. It is very unfortunate that they will do that. So we hope, Mr. Speaker, and in the case of your predecessor, let me say that and repeat it, I've repeated it again. The police came to Parliament Road during our debate on Election Laws Amendment Bill. We were barricaded here. We got off the car somewhere around Uhuru Highway. Your predecessor adjourned this house, Mr. Speaker, until they moved out of Parliament Road. So there must be an explanation. Otherwise, I said the last time, next time it will be somebody else. And there will never be an end to this. Thank you, Speaker.
Senator Kimani Wamatangi.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise, Mr. Speaker, to also convey my concern. And Mr. Speaker, I want to agree that indeed the independence of every one of us when we are participating in our duty is paramount. It is not compromisable. And indeed, Mr. Speaker, that people in this House as members must be able to debate, express themselves, Mr. Speaker, say what they think is their opinion, Mr. Speaker, without any interference, Mr. Speaker, and without fear. Mr. Speaker, that must be how we debate and how members feel, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I have heard the senator for Kericho, Mr. Speaker, and because Senator Linturi was with us here in the morning, he made the contributions he made, Mr. Speaker. Then we have just been informed by Senator Cheruiyot that he has been arrested. But Mr. Speaker, my plea to the House would be this, because we are here, Mr. Speaker, and Senator Linturi must be within the boundaries of this country or this city. Can we find out, Mr. Speaker, now where Mr. Speaker, Mr. Senator Linturi is, Mr. Speaker, without first imputing that he has been arrested for participating in this house. And then, Mr. Speaker, once that is ascertained, Mr. Speaker, then you can proceed to take the necessary action that would be taken by you as the leader of this house, Mr. Speaker. But I believe that in the best interest of not only parity but fairness, both to Senator Linturi and to the integrity of the house, that before we conclude that that is why Senator Linturi has been arrested, Mr. Speaker, we have the means to be able to find out, Mr. Speaker, as to why and where are the whereabouts of Senator Linturi, and within a few minutes report to this house, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, I was just seeking your indulgence so that, Mr. Speaker, we can put the truth to the table. Mr. Speaker, it is possible to do that within no time, in a short while, Mr. Speaker.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm not gagging anybody. I've not even said anything. Honestly. I was just, no, don't suspect. I was just saying, as we continue contributing, I was just saying in the next 20 minutes, if Senator Linturi is not here, we're going to make a decision. Senator Wambua.
I thank you, Mr. Speaker, for this opportunity. Mr. Speaker, I think I want to be very, very clear on this matter. Mr. Speaker, this is just an attempt to intimidate not just Senator Linturi, but all the senators and all the legislators. Mr. Speaker, I took time to look at this document. One of the very controversial issues in this document, Mr. Speaker, which has been cited by the committee, is an attempt to transfer the powers and functions of the Police Service Commission to the Office of the Inspector General of Police. Mr. Speaker, if the IG is behaving the way he's behaving now, before these powers are transferred to him, how will he behave when the powers are transferred to him? Mr. Speaker, you know some people have already implemented this BBI bill. Mr. Speaker, my submission is that you require the IG in person to produce Senator Linturi here. Whether Senator Linturi was arrested in connection with this or not, the timing is suspect. I thank the Speaker.
What's your point of order, Senator Mamatangi?
Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, as members ventilate, Mr. Speaker, and as I've just said, it is possible for us to find out where is Senator Linturi. Mr. Speaker, I am informed, and I need to inform the House, because I said we would call and find out that Senator Linturi had a mishap with some police officers who apprehended him, but Mr.
Order.
Mr. Speaker.
Order, senators.
Mr. Speaker, but Senator Linturi has been released. And he is on the way to this house in the next 10 minutes, Mr. Speaker. He was released and he's on the way to this house, Mr. Speaker.
Order, senators.
Mr. Speaker, this matter was brought and we have agreed, and as I've said, Mr. Speaker, that indeed it is very wrong. It is absolutely wrong for any member of this house to conduct business in this house, Mr. Speaker, in fear. That's what we have said, Mr. Speaker. It is completely unacceptable that a member of this house should be looking behind his back when doing the things that he is doing. Mr. Speaker, I'm on a point of order.
Okay, what's your point of order, Senator Cheriot? But it's on a point of order.
I'm on a point of order, Mr. Speaker.
Let him.
Mr. Speaker,
okay, let him conclude.
I'm on a
I'm
on a point of order.
Senator Cheriot.
Let me finish, Mr. Speaker, and then any member is free, because, Mr. Speaker, I volunteered to go and find out. And what I'm saying, Mr. Speaker, is, as far as we are concerned, and as a senator in this house, Mr. Speaker, I am saying firmly that it is completely wrong for any member of this house to conduct his business looking behind his back in fear, Mr. Speaker. That is absolutely what we are saying, Mr. Speaker. And no one should imagine that for any one reason, Mr. Speaker, that we would condone that kind of thing. And I want to say, to my colleagues,
He's on a point of order, Senator.
and I want to say to my colleagues, Mr. Speaker, that family, so that we do not unnecessarily raise temperatures. Senator Linturi has now been released, and he's on his way here, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, that is the point.
Order, Senator Orengo. Okay. Okay. What's your point of order? What's your point of order before Senator Orengo?
Mr. Speaker, sir, I have spoken, as the government apologist continued talking, I have spoken with Senator Linturi, and he's still under arrest. He's still in custody.
Senator Orengo.
Mr. Speaker, this matter, Mr. Speaker, this matter
Order, senators.
This matter is not as simple as the majority whip is making it. It's not. And Mr. Speaker, this issue has everything to do with the liberties of Parliament. Indeed, there used to be a practice which is observed in the Commonwealth, that when a member of Parliament is on the way to Parliament, or a Parliament is in session, which is required to attend, the member of Parliament should not be arrested without the leave of the Speaker. Because then the Speaker would understand that the arrest has nothing to do with the proceedings before the House. Mr. Speaker, I'm saying this because I've been a victim. I've been a victim. And if these rules were not complied with, many members would have been arrested from even the belly of the chamber. If we let it continue, one of these days, policemen are going to come into the chamber, not just to arrest Linturi, to arrest the Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, at the end of the day, Mr. Speaker, at the end of the day, you are the head of this House. I cannot take the powers of communicating with another arm of government on behalf of parliamentarians. No. In fact, unfortunately, Mr. Wamatangi cannot speak for the executive. He can only speak for this House. So I suggest that until you have a proper answer, we have no business continuing. Mr. Clark, I want the Speaker to listen to this. Yeah. Mr. Speaker, you know, sometimes you want to vote, and you don't know whether that arrest has a linkage to what is going to happen in the House. Yes. That's why that tradition was very important. Yes. That tradition was very important. In England, in the 16th century, a king went to the chamber of the House of Commons with 400 policemen to arrest 5 members of Parliament. And the Speaker refused. In fact, he said he is the one who, first of all, determined the liberties of Parliament and defied the king. So today, Mr. Speaker, until you are told where Honorable Linturi is, you must eat everything we are giving you as information, yes, as rumors. No one of us can tell you whether Senator Linturi has been released until officially there is communication between you and the involved parties, or Linturi himself is here. So I move that the House adjourns to give you time to deal with this matter.
Okay, order, senators, order, senators. I want to say this. Order. That this is very, very serious. And because of the gravity of the matter and what has been requested, I am suspending the House for 30 minutes during which time I will use to find out what exactly has happened. And even after that, after we find out, I'll want to direct the community on national security to get into this matter and find out as a deterrent so that this does not happen again to any member of this. It is so directed. Okay, honorable senators, I just want to confirm to the House that Senator Linturi is with us, has been in my office, and he will be here in the next 2 minutes, and I will give him an opportunity to say something. Okay, order members. Yes, Senator Mutula Jr. Senator Junior.
Mr. Speaker, when we elected you, there was an announcement by the clerk to go and find a person with your name in the corridors. So maybe you should make a similar order for Senator Linturi so that he comes and we can proceed. Thank you.
Senator Linturi. Okay. Okay, order, members. Okay, order, members. You remember I suspended the house. I'm a servant of this house. And I go by the wishes of this house. So we suspended the sitting because one of us was missing. Now he's here. I'll give him 5 minutes to tell us where he was. Senator Linturi.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for according me this opportunity to brief the House what I've been doing since the House was adjourned, when give us an opportunity to go and read the BMBI bill, the report of the committee, and then be able to get back to this chamber at 2:30 to debate on the same. Mr. Speaker, the few hours have been in the hands of my good brother, Kinot, has not been one of the best experiences, to say the least. And Mr. Speaker, even before getting there, I really must thank this House. I must thank you. I must thank the members of Parliament who have found it very necessary to stand up and be with me at this particular time, not because, Mr. Speaker, I'm not answerable to an agency that is investigating any matter, or I'm not supposed to be arrested. Mr. Speaker, I'm thanking this House because, Mr. Speaker, today is a serious day in the history of this country. When you found it necessary to call the Senate to discuss this bill, to discuss and find a way on how the proposed constitutional changes can take place. But, Mr. Speaker, despite that serious moment in our history, that will never probably come in the next few months, and the way I represent the people of Meru, and the people of Meru expecting me to give my ideas and their thoughts, because I've been discussing with them and what position they want me to take, I find it very absurd because, Mr. Speaker, I would have been summoned to go to the DCI on Monday or yesterday or any other day. But in doing it today, Mr. Speaker, is what is really annoying me and is very, very painful, very painful. But be that as it may, Mr. Speaker, this House, and you, Mr. Speaker, you have demonstrated leadership today. I must thank you. Honestly, you have demonstrated leadership because we would not know next time what will happen. Remember when the other senators were arrested and were discussing serious issues, this gentleman does not even, can't understand why this has to happen. We condemn, thank God I sit in the Committee on National Security. And we had a discussion between the DCI, the ING and the others, and we said yes, whenever there is an issue that requires a member of Parliament to present him, even if you have no other way, write to the Speaker, let the Speaker communicate to the member of Parliament, and we'll gladly go before him. So when I left here and went to my house after reading, I find people, police officers in 3 vehicles and brandishing guns, wanting to arrest me. I don't think I really deserve that kind of treatment, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, we require to be treated with dignity. We require to be told whenever we have done anything wrong or even something is being investigated to appear and share the information because we are equal before the law. And we can't run away. I can't leave Kenya. I am elected. If I was to run away from this House, I would lose my position as Senator for Meru. So please, Mr. Speaker, and other members, today it was me. Tomorrow, it may be you. Let's be each other's keeper. But I have no wants to express my thanks to you, senators. You can be sure, and I think my history will also tell, I've always been there for any one of us, and because of the nature of the matter before us, Mr. Speaker, I don't want to take more time, but I really want to thank you. Whenever I've been told to appear tomorrow 9 o'clock, Mr. Speaker, we have a session tomorrow. So I don't know, you'll be able to guide us on how we need to go about it. But I feel I really need to be around to discuss on this matter. So thank you, Mr. Speaker. Asante.
Senator Wamatangi, so that we conclude and proceed.
Mr. Speaker, I don't wish to say much. I just wish to just say one thing, Mr. Speaker. That when I said here that we cannot take the freedom of a member of parliament for granted, and the right of a member of parliament to prosecute his business and go around in freedom without fearing that anything he will say or do in this house can be used against him. That's not compromisable, Mr. Speaker. And that is precisely what I said. I just wanted to affirm that, Mr. Speaker, because when I stood here, some in this house may have misconstrued that I'm speaking for what they call deep state. I'm speaking for my friend, Mr. Speaker. And unbeknown to many people here, Mr. Speaker, this morning, Mr. Speaker, I had breakfast with Senator Linturi in the morning, and we were discussing our own issues. Mr. Speaker, let me put it to rest for anyone who is in doubt.
Order, senators.
Senator Linturi is my personal friend for many years, and he ought to have said that when he's here. Our relationship has not started yesterday. And so when I went to speak there, Mr. Speaker, I was not speaking for only a member of parliament, I was speaking for a friend, Mr. Speaker. Okay. And that's what we shall do for any member, if there is anything,
okay,
Mr.
order.
Speaker. Thank you.
Order, senators. Order, senators. Order, senators. I know, order, senators. Okay, Senator Cheriot, I think we want to...
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As a House, we really appreciate, first of all, you listening to our plight and the fact that this solidarity has brought Senator Linturi back to the House. And as colleagues, that's a big lesson. If we stick together, all these people who are trying to reduce this very honorable House to a rubber stamp will scatter in 7 directions. Even as we transact the business that is before us, Mr. Speaker, I want to plead with all our colleagues that please let this be the guiding spirit and attitude, because we have a duty that surpasses our political leanings or any ambitions that we may carry, either our own or for different people. Mr. Speaker, Senator Linturi has made a request to you that tomorrow at 10 a.m. he'd wish to be in the chamber and participate in the deliberations without feeling bothered or intimidated or as if he has to report somewhere else. Will it be too much, Mr. Speaker, if we made a request to you as a House that you write to the people that are looking for Senator Linturi, let them know that tomorrow is a very important day in the calendar of this legislature, as such that Senator Mithika Linturi is not available at any time between 10 a.m. and 6:30 p.m. Afterwards, if we conclude the business that will be before us, they can look for him. And I'm sure he's a good, respectable civil servant, civil citizen. Therefore, he will present himself if they want him afterwards. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, my humble request is that you just guarantee Senator Linturi of his presence in the House tomorrow at 10 a.m.
Okay, order. Let me say this, so that we are able to make progress. One, I have already spoken to the IG and the Minister for Interior that Linturi will not appear until this matter is concluded. So tomorrow Senator Linturi will be with us here. Number two, we have also agreed that no member of any assembly, be it county assembly, national assembly, or senate, will be arrested without the speaker's knowledge. I've spoken to the minister, and there were witnesses in my office when I was speaking to him, and I hope we are going to stick to that, because like you have rightly said, we must protect our house, we must protect the integrity. Like you said, next time it will be the speaker. And I would expect you to defend me. So that is where we are. So I think let's proceed according to the lead of majority to, let's make progress. Next order, sorry. Next order.
Order number 1, the Constitution of Kenya Amendment Bill 2020, second reading.
Okay, what is it, Senator Sakaja?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I would not exasperate you with the same issue. Mr. Speaker, just to draw your attention, and members, you know, we have recently lost colleagues, in fact, one colleague due to COVID. And the numbers don't look good. Mr. Speaker, I have seen 2 members using the same microphone without a mask before it is sanitized. And I am not pointing at any part of this house, but we're not all distanced properly, and there's seating, there's space. I just urge members, through you, Mr. Speaker, not to, even if you've been vaccinated, our departed colleague was vaccinated. Mr. Speaker, that we don't take it lightly and just consider that, especially for use of the dispatch. I've seen the leader is going back to the dispatch. Senator Mithika used the same one. After Mithika, Senator Wamatangi went before it was sanitized. Let's just be careful, Mr. Speaker. No,
Yeah,
not before.
okay.
It was not.
Okay.
Not
No, I
before
think
Wamatangi.
Order. I think it's raising a pregnant point. So I think let us observe social distancing. This thing is really, you've heard our colleagues talk about it. We had Senator Wako, he had a very moving story about it. So it can attack any of us, and even Senator Kiraitu. So let us be careful. We are told even if you are vaccinated, you can still get COVID. Only that it may not take you very fast, but it can have an impact. It can be a slow puncture. So, leader of majority. Yeah. Okay, Senator Farhia. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. That notwithstanding the provisions of Standing Order 1064, pursuant to Standing Order 1061, the Senate resolved that each senator shall be limited to speak for not more than 10 minutes on the motion of Order number 3 in the order paper, provided that the mover, the minority leader, and the chairperson of the Committee on Justice, Legal Affairs, and Human Rights shall speak for not more than 30 minutes. I thank you.
What's your point of order, Senator Murkomen? Yeah.
Mr. Speaker, I feel even before Senator Faria moves the motion she's moving, you had already made a communication that each senator has 20 minutes. Mr. Speaker, sorry, you know when you are online, you are on this thing called virtual, sometimes you miss some communication. The Speaker, if you had made a communication that is 10, she's moving a motion that it is 10, I have a problem with that. And I had said as much. That, Mr. Speaker, this is just once in a lifetime opportunity for us to discuss a very serious matter. Mr. Speaker, we can even be up to midnight, the next day, for 2 days, for 3 days. We're discussing a constitution that took 20 years to be made, Mr. Speaker, that many people lost their lives fighting for. So, Mr. Speaker, I really feel like we should not allow Senator Faria to proceed.
Why can't we have a seconder first? Then then you can. Let's have a second.
I was trying to help Senator Faria not to go to that direction.
I understand that you have come very fast from Member Boot, but
I beg to move and...
yes, who is seconding?
I beg to move and request Senator Pareno to second.
Mr. Speaker, I second.
Okay. Okay, order, members. I propose the question, which is that notwithstanding the provisions of Standing Order 1064, pursuant to Standing Order 1061, the Senate resolves that each senator shall be limited to speak for not more than 10 minutes on the motion at order number 1 in the order paper provided at the mover, the Senate Minority Leader, and the chairperson of the Standing Committee on Justice, Legal Affairs, and Human Rights shall speak for not more than 30 minutes. Senator Wetangula.
Can you sanitize the microphone? Yes. Mr. Speaker, I oppose this motion. And I want to urge the leadership, Mr. Speaker, both the majority and the minority, that we should resist any temptation, act, or omission that entrenches the feeling that we are a rubber stamp. Mr. Speaker, these documents that we have all participated in getting them to where they are have far-reaching effects on our country. And we are the leaders. We are the representatives of the millions of Kenyans out there. I want to urge, Mr. Speaker, that we give members time and room to ventilate on this matter so that we can enrich the thinking of Kenyans. To come here, Mr. Speaker, you have gazetted special sitting for 2 days. We have missed out the morning for reasons we understand because we needed the documents and we have gone through them. We have lost an hour in the afternoon because of the conduct of the state on Senator Linturi. And now we are left with an hour and a half or so, and tomorrow. You can very well, Mr. Speaker, gazette even next week, so that we speak to this document, even if we'll vote differently, but we must put our views on record for posterity. Because, Mr. Speaker, we are touching and affecting the lives of each and we must tell Kenyans why we are doing so. We have already been told repeatedly by some young politicians out there that we have no right to question, that we are rubber stamps, that we are conveyor belts, that not even a comma, that whatever. If that is the case, the adage of Parliament remains, have your way, let me have my say. And that's what we should give Kenyans, Mr. Speaker, and allow us, give the majority leader, the minority leader, the usual 1 hour, and I suggest that you give us 20 minutes for some members. Some of us will require about 40 minutes. So that we can ventilate on this matter as seriously and as exhaustively as we can. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to urge, Mr. Speaker, in fact, in the interest of saving time, and in the interest of making progress, and in the interest of telling Kenyans what we are doing, that the senator who has moved the motion abandons it so that it collapses as if it was never there in the first place.
Order, senators. Since this is a procedural motion and is a voice, it's a noise vote. Order, you know, you're already eating into the time you are asking for. So let me put the question. You take a vote. so that then you can even have 50 minutes. I have no problem. So I now put the question, which is that notwithstanding the provisions of Standing Order 1064, pursuant to Standing Order 1061, the Senate resolves that each senator shall be limited to speak for not more than 10 minutes on the motion at order number 1 in the order paper, provided that the mover, the Senate Minority Leader, and the chairperson of the Standing Committee on Justice, Legal Affairs, and Human Rights shall speak for not more than 30 minutes. As many of that opinion say aye. As many of country of you say nay. The noes have it, therefore you will have your leader. Majority Leader.
This has been sanitized.
Okay, Leader, as you move, what that ruling means is that now we go back to Standing Order number 106, where the leader has 60 minutes, the second has 60 minutes, the chair 60 minutes, and the rest of you 20 minutes. Proceed, Senator, Leader of Majority.
Point of order.
What's your point of order, Senator Sakaja?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, I'd urge that you're able to listen. Mr. Speaker, we appreciate that you've clarified that now we go back to the status quo, where the leader of majority and the seconder have an hour, and the chair of the committee has 30 minutes. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to request, because the reason the chair of the committee has 30 minutes is because he's led this process very ably, and he has penned a report. Mr. Speaker, I also have a minority report that is informing the debate. So, Mr. Speaker, I urge that I get, while the chair might need 30, I would need just 60 minutes, Mr. Speaker. 60 minutes is 1 hour to move the minority report.
Order.
To give context, or at the very least, Chair, as I finish, to be treated as equally as the chair in terms of the time given, so that members can understand the different perspective in the minority report. So, Chair, I'm requesting you to give discretion for me to have at least 40 minutes, Mr. Speaker. Chair, thank you.
Order, Senators. There's only one speaker in this house. And he was addressing the speaker. So these are the things you are talking about. I would argue that you will have your time. Let the speaker have his time. Senator Chilo Ayako has a point of order virtually. Let's see him. Senator Chilo Ayako. Unmute your... Order. Let's hear him. We can't hear you.
Are you able to hear me?
Okay. Let's hear him.
Mr. Speaker, thank you for the opportunity to be heard. Mr. Speaker, on behalf of those who are being heard virtually, I want to make a request that you also recognize as people who desire to participate the same way that you are able to identify those who are in the chambers. And we appreciate the fact that they made a time for it. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
That is why you are talking, because I've given you an opportunity, because I recognize that we are those who are there virtually. So, leader of majority.
Okay. Speaker, thank you, Speaker. Speaker, even as I go to move this motion, Speaker, can I advise on my side that they keep distance? At the back there, I don't see the distance being kept, Speaker, social distancing. If you can direct...
Proceed.
If you can direct, people need to sit on seats which are labeled, Mr. Speaker, so that we don't have the problem that has been said before. Mr. Speaker, I beg to move that the Constitution of Kenya Amendment Bill...
Senator Nderitu, what is the point of order?
Senator Sakaja made a request which was not answered, so he doesn't know where he stands.
We have not concluded yet. We have just started. I will give an answer at an appropriate time. Leader of majority, proceed.
Speaker, I think we need to rewrite our own rules so we know when it's a point of order or it's a point of request or something like that. Otherwise, I think there's a lot of misuse on the issue of point of order. Speaker, I beg to move that the Constitution of Kenya Amendment Bill 2020 be now read a second time. Speaker, I begin with citing the Article 257 of the Constitution 2010 provides for the mechanism through which Constitution of Kenya may be amended through a popular initiative signed by at least 1 million voters. The popular initiative may be in the form of a general suggestion or a formulated draft, of which the promoters of that popular initiative may formulate into a draft bill. The Speaker, the Constitution of Kenya Amendment Bill, the one we are debating today, is a product of the Building Bridges Initiative, BBI, task force that was created shortly after the 2018 discussion between His Excellency President Uhuru Kenyatta and the President of the Republic of Kenya and the Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga, former Prime Minister of the Republic of Kenya. Through this BBI, Mr. Speaker, citizens from all over the country, all corners of our country, share their concerns and views on issues ranging from their responsibilities and rights, national ethos, and responsible citizenship, corruption, productivity and shared prosperity, devolution, divisive elections, ethnic antagonism, inclusivity, and security, among others. This bill, Speaker, focuses on those issues with an overriding objective of promoting a cohesive society and to further the ideals of a united, prosperous, and a just nation. The Constitution of Kenya, Amendment Bill 2020, also affirms or reaffirms the sovereignty of a people of Kenya as espoused in the Article 1 of our Constitution, having originated and encompassing the views of the people of Kenya. As we all know, Mr. Speaker, the people may exercise their sovereignty or sovereign power either directly or through their democratically elected representatives. This is a case where the people have opted to exercise their power directly.
What's your point of order, Senator Murkomen?
Mr. Speaker, have you realized that the mover, who is the majority leader, is, first of all, Mr. Speaker, I'm on a point of order and he's still standing.
Oh, yeah, he needs to.
Which is,
by the way, Mr. Speaker,
take your seat, leader.
I could freeze.
Mr. Speaker, have you realized that the leader is reading his notes, or is it the report or whatever he's reading? Which, Mr. Speaker, you know I'm a proponent of Senate changing its standing orders to allow senators to read their notes if they want, like American Senate. But as it stands now, the standing orders do not allow anyone to read notes while debating. unless with the permission of the Speaker. Did you grant him the permission of the Speaker to read his notes?
He was not reading. I think he was just making references, looking at. I'll observe if he reads.
Thank you,
but
thank
so
you.
far, I think he's just making references to.
In fact, Mr. Speaker, I'm just holding them. This is. I have a problem having nothing to hold. But true enough, Speaker, I am only making reference to them. If you notice, Mr. Speaker, I take my eyes off more often than I put them on there. And Mr. Speaker, it's also important when you're quoting the law to have a look at it. I mean, and actually quote it from the written notes. It's just that one way of my predecessor trying to say hello, which I appreciate, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I just said that this is the case where the people have opted to exercise their power directly. And that's why it's a popular initiative, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, being therefore a popular initiative, and as you may be aware, Mr. Speaker, and I want to make the honorable senators, of course, aware, our own Constitution 2010, this Constitution, Mr. Speaker, this amendment, was ably considered by all the 47 counties. The bill was overwhelmingly passed by 43 out of the 47 counties, Mr. Speaker. And copies of the draft bill submitted to the speakers of the Senate and therefore the National Assembly, according to Article 257(6). Consequently, Mr. Speaker, the Senate is mandated under Article 257(7) to consider the Constitution of Kenya Amendment Bill 2020 without delay, as have been stated even by yourself, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, at the risk of overemphasizing this matter, the principal object of the bill is to amend the Constitution of Kenya 2010 so as to address issues arising from its implementation, specifically the needs to resolve, Mr. Speaker, issues of divisive elections and promote gender equity in governance, strengthen the structure, Speaker, of devolution, and increase resource allocation to the counties. Also, Mr. Speaker, it aims to broaden mechanisms for all the people of Kenya to benefit from the economic growth, harmonize certain roles and functions of the bicameral legislation, Speaker, fortify national ethos by specifying the responsibilities of citizens and strengthen accountability on public resources and fight against corruption. Mr. Speaker, let me remind ourselves and remind the House, just briefly, that the Constitution of Kenya 2010, the Constitution of Kenya Amendment Bill 2020 seeks to do one or so many of the following. Mr. Speaker, I'll just cite a few. One, it seeks to amend Chapter 2 of the Constitution of Kenya 2010 on the formative aspects of the Republic in order to address regional integration, cohesion, shared prosperity, and the centrality of the economy. The aspiration is to enhance, Mr. Speaker, is to enhance Kenya's standing and leadership in the region and to balance production and sharing. This provision is set out in clauses 2 or 3 of this amendment bill. Mr. Speaker, this amendment bill also intends to amend Chapter 3 of the Constitution on the citizenship to introduce a new article on the responsibilities of a citizen, to enhance patriotism and set out the duties of a citizen to a country and to fellow citizens. This provision is set out in Clause 4 of this bill. Speaker, the amendment bill further intends to amend Chapter 4 of the Constitution of the Bill of Rights to provide a constitutional underpinning for privacy of personal data of citizens as an emerging area in human rights to technological advantage. This provision is set out in clauses 5 and 6 of this amendment bill. The amendment bill also seeks to amend Chapter 7 of our Constitution 2010 on representation of the people to enhance equity, transparency, and fairness of the electoral system, and specifically, Speaker, to give effect to the principles set out in Articles 81 of the National Assembly, and to enhance the oversight powers of the Houses of Parliament. It is proposed that the executive will be represented in the National Assembly, Speaker, by the Prime Minister, Deputy Prime Ministers, Cabinet Ministers, Deputy Ministers, and the Attorney General. The office of the Leader of Opposition, the Speaker, is created or established by this amendment. The existing disqualifications for the members of the county assemblies from being qualified to be elected as members of Parliament are now removed, Speaker. The bill further proposes to expand the composition of Parliament to give effect to the gender equity and also equality of the vote principles. This provision is set out in clauses 12 up to 21 of this bill. The Speaker, to amend Chapter 9 of the Constitution on the executive to broaden the executive structures to achieve inclusivity is one of the other intentions of this amendment bill. The Constitution of Kenya Amendment Bill 2020 talks about cohesiveness and the unity of the benefit of the people. This chapter introduces the office of the Prime Minister and 2 deputy Prime Ministers with leadership roles in the executive and Parliament. It also provides, the Speaker, the Cabinet Ministers may be appointed from among members of the National Assembly. This provision is set out in clause 22 up to 36 of the bill. And Speaker, we all know that this is not new in this country. Those of us who have been in Parliament before, in the from independence all the way to the last, maybe our 10th Parliament, Speaker, know that it used to be that ministers came from Parliament. And it would be good, Mr. Speaker, to note that that is a parliamentary system. And parliamentary system allows, therefore, members to interact with the government directly. Not like this moment where we have found ourselves, Mr. Speaker, trying to shuttle between here and the government offices in search of information. We always found that to be very useful. Speaker, the Constitution of Kenya, Amendment Bill 2020, intends also to amend Chapter 10 of the Constitution on the judiciary to provide for more transparency in the judicial processes. The proposed amendments provide for the finality of the decisions of the Court of Appeal in petitions concerning an election and limits the tenure of the President of the Court of Appeal and High Court to 5 years. The amendments further provide for the tenure of the Deputy Chief Justice and aligns it with that of the Chief Justice. This bill, therefore, further seeks, Mr. Speaker, to introduce the Judiciary Ombudsman as a non-voting member of the Judicial Service Commission. This provision is found in clauses 37 to 44 of the bill. Mr. Speaker, further, the Constitution of Kenya Amendment Bill intends to amend Chapter 11 of the Constitution on the devolved government to provide for further clarity on the nomination of members of the County Assembly and powers of the county governor. This provision is set out in clauses 45 up to 48 of this bill. The Speaker further intends to amend Chapter 12 of the Constitution on Public Finance to streamline various finance principles and processes to promote efficiency and ensure expenditures are directed to maximize utility. The proposals, Mr. Speaker, promote the actualization of the rights guaranteed under Article 43 and strengthens devolution. This provision is set out in Article 49, in Clause 49 up to 61 of this bill. Speaker, in order to amend Chapter 13, the intention of the Constitution of Kenya Amendment Bill 2020 on the on the public service to remove the national security organs from the ambit of Public Service Commission. This provision is set out in clauses 62 and 63 of this bill. Further, in order to amend Chapter 14 of the Constitution on national security to provide clarity on the unit of command in the service, this bill provides in clauses 64 to 67 that simplifies that matter for us and provides for it. The Speaker, Chapter 15 is the other one that is intended to be amended by this constitutional amendment bill. It is on the constitution of commissions and the independent offices to require constitutional commissions to enhance corporate governance practices in managing the affairs of the commissions and independent offices, and to include, Mr. Speaker, the Director of Public Prosecutions as an independent office. This provision is set out in clauses 67, 68 and 69 of the bill. Speaker, sir, in order to amend Chapter 16 of the Constitution, or the intention is to amend Chapter 16 of the Constitution on the general provisions to provide for the filling of a vacancy of an appointive office under the Constitution, and requires that the process of replacing the holder of an office shall commence at least 6 months before the lapse of the term of that office holder, and conclude, Mr. Speaker, before the lapse of the term of that office holder, and conclude before the lapse of the term of the office holder. That means 6 months before, and we must be finished within 6 months, Mr. Speaker. This is to ensure a seamless transition and fewer disruptions in the running of appointive constitutional state offices. This provision, Speaker, is in clauses 70 and 71 of this amendment bill. The Speaker, the other part of the Constitution which is touched is going to be amended, Speaker, by this amendment bill is the third schedule of the Constitution on national oaths and affirmations. Clause 72 of the bill proposes to amend the third schedule to include the Prime Minister and the Deputy Prime Minister as state officers who should take an oath or make a solemn affirmation as described in that particular schedule. Speaker, in addition to the above cited clauses, also the first schedule to the bill lists the legislation proposed for Parliament to enact and the recommended time and specification in order to ensure a full implementation, Mr. Speaker, of the proposed amendments of the Constitution. To this effect, Clause 73 of this bill provides that Kenya Law Reform Commission and the Attorney General shall prepare the relevant bills to introduce to Parliament. The Speaker, also to amend the second schedule of the bill, and Clause 74 outlines the transition and consequential provisions on various aspects, including saving terms of office of various institutions restricted in the bill. The schedule further guides on the manner of delimitation in respect of additional 70 constituencies that have been proposed. That is to be found in Clause 74. The Speaker, we have an opportunity here as members of Parliament to be in a rare space, Speaker, to be debating a bill that is going to amend our Constitution. And it's very important, Mr. Speaker, as you ruled this morning, that members need to be given time to go and look at the details, not only of the bill itself, Mr. Speaker, but also on the report of the Joint Committee, particularly the report that our own JLAC committee has given to us. Speaker, I want to assure members that the opportunity to speak will be accorded because this is a rare opportunity. And everyone who wishes to speak on this matter, Speaker, should actually have a chance to record their participation. This, Mr. Speaker, is akin to those of us who participated in the 2010 Constitution when we went to a constitutional conference. In this case, Mr. Speaker, this is a direct application. Members are beginning to change the Constitution without having to go to that conference. Speaker, those of us who attended the Constitutional Conference felt like we participated and we contributed, and this is another chance. And so members, Mr. Speaker, who wish to contribute to this matter will have built their names into the annals of history as having participated in amending the Constitution. Speaker, I have highlighted some of the changes or the amendments intended by this bill. I've spoken, Mr. Speaker, of the chapters, of the schedules, and now, Mr. Speaker, according to our own standing orders, 141 and 224, this bill, after first reading, was committed to the Standing Committee on Justice, Legal Affairs, and Human Rights, which was mandated to work jointly with the National Assembly, Departmental Committee on Justice and Legal Affairs, in accordance with National Assembly Standing Orders 127, 1 and 202A. Commendably, Speaker, there has been a thorough scrutiny of the joint sitting by the Joint Committee, or joint sitting of the Joint Committee and Legal Affairs of our committee, our own committee, JLAC, and the National Assembly Committee on Justice and Legal Affairs. Mr. Speaker, they have given a very comprehensive report. Those of you who have the report can see that it's it's a big report. And so, Mr. Speaker, as we get to discuss this bill, we cannot therefore leave behind what we have gathered or gained from reading the report of the committee. And that's why immediately after this bill has been moved and seconded, Mr. Speaker, we will get the details of that report. And so, Mr. Speaker, the joint sittings, which has taken quite a number of days, Speaker, address the various issues which have been raised during the immense public participations or public hearings. And I'm sure, Mr. Speaker, that the chairman of the committee will expound on that and give us more of the detail of the experiences, Speaker. Honorable Senators and Honorable Speaker, the senators have noted, and I know, Mr. Speaker, having had our moments this morning, that the Constitution of Kenya Amendment Bill 2020 significantly benefits the devolved units, increases revenue allocation, and enhancing the oversight role of the Senate. Wholesomely, Mr. Speaker, the Constitution of Kenya Amendment Bill 2020, the BBI bill, has vast benefits in the sustainable development of all sectors of our economy, Mr. Speaker. Economic and political spheres have been covered, and the centrality of the Republic and governance within the Republic has been emphasized. Mr. Speaker, in light of the above, in light of all that I've shared, Mr. Speaker, and in light of whatever is going to come in here, I urge members, Mr. Speaker, to debate this bill with a hindsight, Mr. Speaker, that the beginnings of this contribution has come from our own citizens. This is a citizen-driven program or process, Mr. Speaker. And we are the representatives of those citizens, Mr. Speaker. And so they have spoken. The county assemblies, Speaker, have spoken. And the verdict is clear. Mr. Speaker, it's now our turn as Parliament to consider this with the view and the voice of our people in the background. That, Mr. Speaker, we represent them and we listen to them. And so, Mr. Speaker, I'm confident that members will support this bill, will pass this bill, will help this bill move from this level to the next level. And so I urge all senators to consider and pass this bill, Mr. Speaker, for the people of Kenya, for national development, for strengthened developed units, strengthened developed system, devolved systems, Speaker, for gender parity, for responsive and all-inclusive representation, for strengthened bicameral parliament, and strengthened accountability of public resources. Speaker, we have fought using all sorts of opportunities this element or animal called corruption. And now, Mr. Speaker, the opportunity to actually fight corruption has come through this bill. Not that, Mr. Speaker, we haven't tried to fight it using the 2010, but this one makes it clear, Mr. Speaker. And so, Mr. Speaker, as we think about how our resources are distributed, we complain, Mr. Speaker, of resources being not only misplaced, but also misused, and in a word, Mr. Speaker, misappropriated. And now, Mr. Speaker, strengthening the systems that work, the legal systems, Speaker, the prosecutory systems, those that deal with the judiciary, and all of us in making laws, Mr. Speaker, we now ask that we support the Amendment Bill the Constitution of Kenya Amendment Bill 2020, in order for us, Mr. Speaker, to leave a footprint in the constitution making of this country as members of this Senate. And so, Mr. Speaker, I want to ask that we consider with clarity of mind, with clear debating, with knowledge, with the information we have garnered from the report of the committees, that we look at this, Mr. Speaker, knowing that it is for our own good, it is for our country. And so, Mr. Speaker, with this very few remarks, Speaker, I beg to move and ask the Senate Minority Leader to second. I thank you, Speaker.
I thank the Majority Leader for moving this motion. Now, Mr. Speaker, before I go into the substance of this bill and the report, some members of this committee were the driving force behind the report. In fact, a lot of times you hear the name of our chair, Senator Okongo Omugeni, the senior counsel, Senator Mutula Kilonzo, and Honorable Otiende. I want to confirm to this House that this report was signed by the majority members of this committee. In fact, if you look at the initial page, the introductory page, forward by the chairpersons, it is signed by Honorable Clement Muturi Kigano with Honorable Eric Okongo Omugeni, Senior Counsel. And if you go to the signatories which are found on the Roman 6, then you find all the names of the members who signed the report. It was generally a unanimous report, save for the abstention of Honorable Kangata, Senator Kangata, and the distinguished member of the senator from Nairobi. And a notion should not be passed out there that there are certain members of these two committees that were driving that committee in a certain direction. And if you look at the recommendation, sometimes I don't know where some people put their brains. Yeah, they lock their brains somewhere in a toilet and just speak. Because there are people out there who are telling us, you know, to support this report. To support this report as if there is anybody saying something different. If you look at the last page of this report, the committee, even Senator Sakaja, who had a minority report, and Senator Kangata, who abstained, there is no contrary recommendation. The recommendation is that the amendment bill should be passed. So those who are saying this and that outside there, they have never looked at this report, and they are trying to find fault where there is no fault. The second issue that I think is more crucial for us is those who are saying that the role of Parliament is ceremonial, or that the role of Parliament is that of, rubber stamping. Indeed, if your role was to rubber stamp, you would need more ink than brains. Because when you rubber stamp so many times, you may run out of ink. This constitution, it is clear we have certain responsibilities. And it starts from Article 1 of the Constitution. People have not distinguished the various roles of Parliament. And people think that Parliament is just a legislature. According to this Constitution, Parliament is more than a legislature. And that is found in Article 1, sub-Article 2, which says the people may exercise their sovereign power either directly or through their democratically elected representative. That is distinguished with the powers, legislative powers, which is found in sub-Article 3. And I want really to dwell on the significance of this issue. It is very important. If you look at the articles dealing with the powers of Parliament, just in case people forget, and at one time we debated this, why this provision was there in the Constitution. Role of Parliament. And you find it in no other provision in the Constitution. Sub-Article 3, Parliament, Sub-Article 4, Parliament shall protect this Constitution and protect the democratic governance of the Republic. You know, the protection of this Constitution, and when this Constitution is talking about this Constitution, it means it is something to be hallowed, it is something of value, and it means when you want to change it, you are going to think about what you are trying to do before you proceed to amend it, because it has got certain foundational values. And this thing that I'm talking to you about, honorable members, can find fortitude in the fact that all the organs, except the IBC, which deal with this bill, are through elected representatives. One, the county assemblies. Second, Parliament. Third, if there's no referendum, is the president, because it's an elected representative. You will not find the name of a judge there. You will not find the name of any chairman of a commission. It is Parliament, it's county assemblies, it's the president. And the most significant thing, and that is why Article 1, Sub-Article 2 is important, that it is our role to oversight and discuss and consider any policy issues that the Republic is considering. Even a private citizen, if he reaches out to the executive or any arm of government, we have a role to play to examine policy issues as a parliament on behalf of the people. And the significance of what I'm saying is this, Mr. Speaker, if you bear with me, how this process starts. It starts as a popular suggestion, which may be then formulated as a draft bill. Now, you'll find throughout, when it goes to the Independent Electoral Commission, what you're dealing with is a draft bill. Why is it a draft bill? I'll point it to you, Mr. Speaker, why it is, they're the ones dealing with the draft bill. When it goes to the county assembly, according to the Constitution, they're dealing with a draft bill. They are not dealing with a bill. The moment the counties, 24, have passed the draft bill, when it comes to Parliament, it becomes a bill. It becomes a bill. And it is only Parliament that then can pass or reject the bill. That is a matter of significance. And why is it, Mr. Speaker, a matter of significance? I want to take you to another article of the Constitution which is very critical. Parliament, this is Article 94, Article 3. Parliament may consider and pass amendments to this Constitution and alter county boundaries as provided in this Constitution. You know, that is a substantive provision in the Constitution. Parliament may amend. The President can't. The County Assembly can't. The courts can't. But there is this provision, which is not for cosmetic value, in very clear words, that Parliament may consider and pass amendments to this Constitution. And I'll address you on this issue because I think it's significant to go through this. Why promote protect the Constitution? I think when we were in that committee, our committee on the Constitution, we had a discussion. Why does the Constitution need protection? It is important why this document itself says Parliament should protect this Constitution. No other organ of government is given that authority or power to protect the Constitution. I know the President is supposed to safeguard and comply by the Constitution, generally, but the role of protecting the Constitution, that's the role of Parliament. Now, so that when a bill comes to you, and I think this has been debated in South Africa many times, when a bill comes to you, even if it's a constitutional bill, Parliament will consider the foundational values that are contained in the preamble of the Constitution and that are contained in Article, the construct of the Republic, which is Chapter 1 and 2. You consider those foundational values as a protector of the Constitution. And this Constitution is telling you in the preamble that the people of this country made this Constitution in the recital to honor those who heroically struggled to bring freedom and justice to our land. There are people who died for this Constitution to be enacted over the years. So this Constitution is reminding you, before you amend it, think that there are some people who died for it. So you cannot play around with it. We cannot play around with it. And there have been members of this assembly, or rather Parliament, the National Assembly, who died in the protection of this Constitution. And we must remember them every time we want to change the law of the land, that they struggled for us to have this Constitution. And we cannot just play around it any time that we want to change it. There must be good reason. And then they are saying in the foundational values, which are recited in the preamble, that we are recognizing the aspirations of all Kenyans for a government based on the essential values of human rights, equality, freedom, democracy, social justice, and the rule of law. The same foundational values are found in Article 10 of the Constitution. So, Mr. Speaker, I want to convince members that your role today and that of the National Assembly. It is not a ceremonial role. It is not a ceremonial role. And we are not here to rubber stamp. We are here to consider, like Article 94 of the Constitution is saying. We consider and pass. The Constitution doesn't just say pass. It says you consider and pass. So there must be evidence for posterity that you actually considered. And they can read the reasons why we made up our mind to change or to amend the Constitution as by law required. So this Article 94 is very critical, and the articles that I've spelled out to honorable members in the procedure for amending the Constitution through a popular initiative. Now, having said that, the committee went through a lot of discussion. And in this report, where certain observations were made, this committee gave solutions. It was not just a report hanging there without giving you solutions. They were telling you, the committee, that you should pass this bill, and where they found challenges, they told us how to address those challenges, which deals with issues like public participation, with the issue of the schedule that created this special category of constituencies. They considered the question of revenue as provided in Article 203. So in all their observations and recommendations, if I may put it that way, they are giving you an answer and a solution of what to do. And that's why, Mr. Speaker, seconding this bill, because the report gives us a way forward. Now, my colleague, the majority leader, has spoken to a lot of issues, almost clause by clause, and it may not be appropriate for me to take a similar trajectory and proceed by analyzing each and every clause. But I think for purpose of seconding this bill, I will make some observations both in the bill and also in the report. And some of the recommendations in the report or observations in the report are on matters which are really consequential upon amendment of the Constitution. The majority leader said now the executive partly is going to come to Parliament, and they have been given a different title that the one that exists in the Constitution, which is the creation of the positions of cabinet ministers as opposed to cabinet secretaries. And the amendment deals with amendments of those provisions, although some were left out, on the question that dealt with cabinet ministers as opposed to cabinet ministers, ministers as opposed to cabinet secretaries. They also made recommendations that the procedure for introducing a bill of this nature into Parliament, whether it should go through first, second reading, and third reading as the normal bills, or a bill brought under Article 256, that Parliament should come out with legislation and standing orders should be amended so that this matter is addressed, so that the procedure is clear. Because The argument was that in Article 257, the procedure is not set out. It simply talks about the question that we should pass the bill. Now, in Article, in regard to Article 203, which is found in Clause 50, on the question of allocation of revenue, remember we had a lot of debate on the issue of the allocation of revenue. And I think we should look at this very clearly, because the observations of the committee and that of the expert was the amendment may override the other parameters which are set out in Article 203. And it would be important that that issue is addressed, and probably the way to address it may be through consequential legislation. Mr. Speaker, there's also an amendment to the powers of the Judicial Service Commission, and I think this is one of the controversial ones. And I'm hoping that when we have gone to the referendum and passed this bill, enacted it through a referendum, that through judicial interpretation, we should be very, very hesitant to enforce that clause. Because what it means is that a judge may be suspended anytime without some kind of process, which goes against what is in the Constitution at the moment. It may actually lead to a clawback. Instead of enhancing the protection given to the judges, we may have taken away something if the interpretation, because I think through a harmonious interpretation of the Constitution, bringing harmony between provisions of the Constitution that may look inconsistent or conflicting, the overall principle which is contained in the Constitution itself, how to interpret the Constitution, that you must look at its values and objectives. And the objectives of this Constitution is to have an independent judiciary. So I think it's a matter we can deal with through legislation, consequential legislation, or through interpretation by the courts, because it touches on a very critical, construct of the independence of the judiciary. Now, the other issue which I think is critical, which now is very controversial, is the issue of the constituencies. And the committee delved into this issue, for long. There were very long debates. And I think it is in regard to this particular clause that we had probably the abstention or the minority report by Senator Sakaja. But all in all, this provision, the committee was saying, without amending other clauses of Article 89, which spells out how you create constituencies, that provision may be hanging on nothing and may mean nothing. That's what the committee was told. And it may be creating a parallel system of delimitation of constituencies, one which is constitutionalized and one which can change at any time. Again, I think if you read that part of the report, it is not left hanging. They tell you, the committee and the suggestion of the experts, that it actually may be much ado about nothing. Because on a proper construction of that provision, one would ask the question actually whether the constituencies have been created or not. And if you read that section properly, I think the debate should really be, is it a provision that is enforceable, or is it hanging in the air? And to me, that is the reason why I've come to the conclusion that we may not necessarily need to sever Schedule 2 or amend it, because the reasoning was, and I think the South African cases that were cited, that a schedule is part of the Constitution. You cannot amend a schedule thinking that different rules apply. The schedule is, properly speaking, part of the Constitution. And therefore, severing it offers many challenges. But I've heard the cry out there. I mean, the report by the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics, for example, they're saying, if you look at the demographics and the parameters, a place like Linturi should have had a constituency. And that is the expert saying it. It is not some busybody who was saying. They're saying like Meru should have gotten a constituency. They are saying Kisii should have gotten a constituency. And Bungoma, we should have those constituencies on those areas if you are using the parameters set out in the Constitution. And I know in my backyard, there's a lot of noise coming from, not noise, legitimate concerns from the people of Nyatike, the people of Karachonyo, the people of Homa Bay, the people of Siaya, and in the neighborhood, I know people of Busia, and of course, I've talked about Kisii. And then also, by all accounts, Kakamega is one of the biggest counties by population, even by the number of constituencies they have now. So explaining how Kakamega was getting 2 constituencies is a bit of a problem if you're using a scientific method. And others are getting 5, others are getting 4, which they deserve. My position is that, they should not be taken away if they are deserved. But if you're using a scientific process, which has been demonstrated by the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics, and IEBC told us that actually they work with the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics for purposes of boundaries and delimitations. There is a question mark there. And at the end of the day, and which I want to persuade our members here, that the severance of that schedule or amendment of that schedule may not necessarily be the answer. It will not help. So it is better to pass this report as it is, because I've looked at so many reports, and I think this is one of the reports that I can say, a lot of brain work went into it. A lot of experts, a lot of our good people, distinguished senators, and members of the National Assembly, they put their mind in this report. And if you look at the attendances, people were so regular and constant in their attendance, virtually or physically. Even when they were abroad, they were taking part in the deliberations. And of course, if you say you want to take some constituencies from a place like Nairobi, then the argument about population, can we deny them? Because one of the parameters is population. So it's a debate that is very difficult to win. You will go on, and people will raise issue with the delimitation of constituencies, even if they are fair and just. The other thing that, of course, which was protected was the existing constituencies, plus the protected constituencies. Because you may find an area that maybe overall they deserve a new constituency, but within it, they've got protected constituencies, which actually, if you use the scientific process and the parameters set out in the Constitution, you may find a county that may lose 2 constituencies. And they're there, and quite a number, in Central, in Western, in Nyanza. They're all over. And Makueni, in Lamu, Lamu is, if you use those parameters strictly, Lamu would end up being a one constituency county. So, and then, Mr. Speaker, there is a question on North Hor. North Hor is so huge. It's so huge. I think it's bigger than Nyanza twice. And it is one constituency. Yeah. And yet, every time we have a review, they don't get it. They don't get it. And yet they are protected constituencies. Why North Hor cannot become a protected constituency using the same criteria which made it possible for others to be protected is beyond comprehension. You have Wajir, where there's a very legitimate concern about one constituency or two. You have Ijara in Garissa. Yeah, so all over the Republic, there are people who deserve to have these constituencies. So that depending on the availability of the number of constituencies, we may not be able to resolve that question. And we are now resolving, because we have created now we are going to have in the National Assembly 360 members of parliament. And if you don't get the gender balance, which happily will be attained in the Senate, you have to give a top-up, gender top-up. So we are going to have a National Assembly which has got 500,000. I mean 500. 500 members of parliament. I think in that parliament, people are going to be talking for 1 minute. Yeah. Yeah. And then in the Senate, because now we're going to be about 100, your usual 5 minutes will come 3 minutes. Yeah. So there are burdens that, there are burdens which have been created. But those burdens, like the one on gender, is a constitutional requirement, is one of the objectives of the Constitution. And we have tried over the years to address that question of gender, but without success. So one of the things that I think we can say about this bill is that it has addressed that question, and at the same time, it has a sunset clause, which means that they are not going to be there forever. Or if you reach a situation like in the Scandinavia, where parliament's membership is in favor of the women as against men, we may reverse the role, and you have more nominated members of Parliament or the Senate who are men. Mr. Speaker, there's one provision in this Constitution which describes the character of society that we want to create. It is a new provision. It is going to be a new provision in the Constitution. And I think it is so fundamental. Remember, Nyerere described Kenya as a man-eat-man society. And we have not changed that character, actually. We are truly man-eat-man. Kenya is the only place you can walk through a government, no, not walk through, just walk near, past. Even a pub, you cannot walk past and you're called for a drink. But in Kenya, for some reason, you can walk near a government organization and walk out with a 3 billion shilling tender. So really, we have not really changed the definition of a man-eat-man society as propagated by the late Mwalimu Nyerere. So this clause 11A, which is right on the first page of the amendment bill, that talks about the economy and shared prosperity. I hope it's not just there to please ourselves. And it says this Constitution recognizes the need for an economic system that provides equitable opportunities for all the people of Kenya to benefit from economic growth in a comprehensive, fair, and sustainable manner. Now, I wonder whether we'll be able to achieve that. In the last 2 months, if you look at the appointments that have been made, I don't know whether you are going to that direction. No. Because it's saying a manner which is giving equitable opportunities. So we should look at every institution and see whether we are creating the face of Kenya, be it in the judiciary or in the public service or in the security systems. This objective is one, I think that if we committed ourselves to it, and I cannot read the other enabling provisions in this clause because it will take long, but if this can become a face of the country we call Kenya, which is fairer than we have had it, then we would have made big strides. And there's another clause there about regional integration and cohesion, which I think is contemplating even a confederation. If you wanted to create a confederation in the region or have a federation, then we'll be having an underpinning provisions in the constitutions that makes it possible. Now, the other big achievement through this BBI document was that the Bill of Rights was never touched. A very different kind of society, but Article 31 of the Constitution is to be amended by expanding the provisions dealing with privacy and to have personal data infringed. We are entering an age of a digital revolution and online communications and so on. So I think this is a very good provision to have in this bill. And the majority leader also talked about the question of speedy investigations on matters dealing with the corruption. Now, clause 18 about responsibilities of citizen, I think they're well placed, but they should never be used to create additional burdens on the people of Kenya, because these are just broad responsibilities. They're not a legal obligation. They're not set out in terms of an obligation, so that if a taxman requires you to make your tax returns, he should not rely on that article dealing with the responsibilities of citizenship. And I think, Mr. Speaker, now that we are bringing the executive back to the House, and more particularly the National Assembly, I think this is good for our type of democracy, because you have seen how difficult it is to have this kind of separation of powers that we had. The executive feels that they are distinct from Parliament, and when they are summoned, they hesitate to come before Parliament. But I know Honorable Wetangula and myself and others who have grown in that system, and the leader of majority, that when ministers are in the House, they tend to be more reflective about how they relate, not only to members, but also to business in the Assembly. And I think bringing the executive back to the Assembly or to Parliament is a good thing, absolutely a good thing. And Mr. Speaker, the only thing that I hope that when they begin to have ex-officio members also who are ministers who are ex-officio members of Parliament, that does not bring a big number of non-elected members, because part of being a minister in a National Assembly is that you feel your accountability to the head of state and the head of government, but also accountability to the people who elected you. And if you have a member a person who is not elected and is a member of the cabinet like we have now, they just become part of the bureaucracy. They cannot speak for you, they cannot speak for anyone. And I think that is a good thing to do. But Mr. Speaker, all this now depends on how we manage our affairs. And this is about institutions. And institutions work when people respect what is required of those institutions. When we as leaders do not we only want to hear what, we want to be told what we want to hear or what we want to know, and not what you don't want to hear or what you need to know. That sometimes is the beginning of autocracy. And as a parliament and as a people, I think this is how we get it wrong sometimes. Because slowly you can have dictatorship stepping in because somebody is surrounded by advisors and officials who are only keen in telling the leader what they want to hear or what they want to know. But I think the responsibility is first to tell the people the truth, and whoever is in authority to be told the truth. If that does not happen, then willy-nilly autocracy will step in, and at great cost and disadvantage. And Mr. Speaker, finally, I think in the future, we may want to think about revisiting the role of the Senate. I think this was not very well handled, but the role of the Senate should be enhanced if the Senate is not in the executive, as it is going to be. There's some hesitance, official or otherwise, to try and make the Senate as weak as possible, and for the Senate to be disregarded. And all over the world, even where the Senate does not have powers, there's a time when we made a trip to France and they were telling us, on paper, the Senate in France is a much weaker chamber of the bicameral system they have there. But they say when they have an important legislation, a very complicated legislation, or a complicated issue, they rather it to be dealt with the Senate, give the Senate more time to deal with. And they said over time, the Senate has assumed quite a number of responsibilities, some of which is unwritten. And because now the government is going to sit in the National Assembly, the most effective way of putting that government to account is by having a strong Senate. And I think the position of senators should be enhanced, even as we deal with governments and with officials and with bureaucracies. That, I think, was not quite well done, but that's not to say that some vetting powers which were not there originally have not been placed before the Senate. The Salaries and Remuneration Commission, again, the role of Parliament has been to some extent compromised, which will make that body more accountable to the executive rather than to Parliament and other institutions which are important, like the independent commissions. I also hope that when the BBI thing when the bill goes through, that the National Assembly will not use it to now cry for more funds. Because now, you know, the ward fund is 5% of the funds that go to the counties. And it'll just be competition for funds. But I think the more we do that, the less the role of the Senate and Parliament is going to be undermined. So, Mr. Speaker, as we had agreed, I don't have to take all the time, but I want to say, without fear of contradiction, because I must repeat this because this thing has been said again and again, that our role is simply ceremonial. And I think the provisions I've gone through answers that question very clearly. And when we pass this report, is on the basis of the process that we undertook, including public participation, and the bill for the first time is edified by being passed through Parliament, because all through it was a draft bill. But now what we are going to pass is a bill that now can go to the people for enactment. With so many remarks, Mr. Speaker, I beg to second and support. Thank you.
Honorable Senators, I now propose the question which is that the Constitution of Kenya Amendment Bill 2020 be read a second time. Senator Omogeni.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I first want to thank members of my committee who worked with me in preparing the report that was tabled before the House this morning. Mr. Speaker, it's always never easy to obtain quorum of 8 members. That is the full composition of members of my committee to sit and consider a matter that is before committee. But on this particular one, Madam Speaker, I want to report that I was able to mobilize and have in attendance all my members. I also want to salute the democratic right that was exercised by Senator for Muranga, Senator Kangata, who abstained from appending his signature to the report, and also the minority report by Senator for Nairobi, Senator Sakaja, who has prepared a minority report, but only on one article that deals with the issue of constituencies. Madam Speaker, I also want to register my appreciation to the members of staff who worked with us tirelessly, at times till very late into the night, in preparation of the report that is before the House. Madam Speaker, I want to make it very clear from the onset that the reports you have seen in the media to the effect that there were disagreements within the members of the committee, the two committees, that's the Committee of National Assembly and Committee of the Senate, is untrue. As Madam Speaker, if you read Roman 6 and Roman 7, all the members who attended the deliberations of the committee appended their signatures, including my co-chair, Honorable Clement Muturi Kigano. So, Mr. Speaker, this is a report that was unanimously prepared and arrived at by the members of those two committees. Mr. Speaker, Madam Speaker, at the conclusion of our deliberations, before I make the observations that were made by the committee, we had a long deliberation, Madam Speaker, on the import of Article 257 of the Constitution vis-a-vis the legislative powers of members of Parliament, that's the National Assembly, and members of the Senate. Madam Speaker, we were also privileged to be guided by two consultants, very renowned lawyers in this country. One of them, Madam Speaker, was a candidate for the position of Chief Justice, that is Professor Mbote. She did not make it, but she was one of the shortlisted candidates. That was one of our consultants, and the other one was Dr. Odote. We want to register our appreciation as a committee for their invaluable support and guidance as we deliberated the contents of the report that is before the House. So with the observations that we made, which I'm going to highlight before the House, we made a unanimous decision as a committee that we propose that this Honorable House passes the Constitutional Amendment Bill of 2020, but with the observations that were made by the committee. Madam Speaker, I want to begin by the issue of Article 257. Madam Speaker, the committee took note of the fact that this is the very first time that this House is being called upon to midwife a bill by popular initiatives by the people of this great republic, and that, Madam Speaker, so far we don't have any legislation guiding members on how this matter should be dealt with. In fact, Madam Speaker, you saw the confusion that we had this morning. We were forced to adjourn the deliberations of the House to enable members get copies of this report, read through, before the same can be debated. Madam Speaker, we also noted that there are really no timelines on how long this Honorable House, that the Senate, should take in considering amendments by popular initiative. So, Madam Speaker, we arrived at a conclusion that going forward, there is need for us to pass a legislation that will guide this process going forward, so that there is a very clear guideline. Madam Speaker, the second observation that was made by the committee is that there are instances where, as we have done in this particular case, where this House may come to the conclusion that some proposed amendments to the Constitution may actually be unconstitutional. That's what in the report we have termed unconstitutional constitutional amendments. Madam Speaker, we had a long debate on this, and the stakeholders who appeared before us, including Katiba Institute, including the President of Law Society of Kenya, who appeared together with 3 council members, the International Commission of Jurists, and others, had entertained thoughts that exercising our legislative mandate under Article 94, we have powers to amend a proposal to amend the Constitution under Article 257. But, Madam Speaker, after a long debate, we arrived at a conclusion that the only amendments that this House can carry on an amendment that has been brought through Article 257 is to do some corrections on errors or amendments that may not go to the substance of the bill, but which may just touch on the form of the bill. But we have made a conclusion, Madam Speaker, in our report that the judiciary, our judiciary, which remains very independent, Madam Speaker, retains the jurisdiction to hear issues that may be unconstitutional, and they can make their pronouncements. Madam Speaker, we were taken through a number of decisions, some from very established jurisdictions in this area, like South Africa, and therefore, Madam Speaker, we affirm as a committee that if there are any clauses in this bill that are unconstitutional, then the judiciary retains jurisdiction to declare them as being unconstitutional. Madam Speaker, I also noticed that this House is really being rushed in considering this bill. But in our report, Madam Speaker, we have drawn the attention of the House to the fact that as we speak today, there are 2 injunctive orders that have been issued by the High Court of Kenya stopping IEBC or the President from assenting to this bill, Madam Speaker. So even if we pass this bill today, we will have to await the outcome of the cases that were filed before the High Court before we can move forward. And Madam Speaker, you know, we were invited as a committee to make a finding, whether this is a bill that is being pushed by the executive or whether this is a bill that is a popular initiative through the people of Kenya. And the finding of this committee, Madam Speaker, is that this is a popular initiative by the people of Kenya and not by the executive. So, Madam Speaker, nobody should tell us that he has received calls from the executive, because this bill belongs to the people of Kenya. The person who is the promoter is the Building Bridges Initiative. It's not the government of Kenya. And if you read the memorandum of objects and the reasons, it says that the proposed constitutional reforms originate from the views of citizens expressed through the Building Bridges Initiative. That is the BBI. However, Madam Speaker, we have made a number of observations that there are characteristics that should be eminent when a bill is being marketed as one that is a popular initiative bill. Madam Speaker, the first one, and which we have pointed out in our report, that such a bill should emanate from the people themselves or from civil society. It should not have the presence of the executive. If you read, Madam Speaker, page 88, we have quoted a write-up that was brought to us by our expert, and I just want to read. It says that the essential precondition for a referendum that is initiated by the people themselves is that it must go against the wishes of either the government or parliament. Those are the characteristics of a popular initiative bill. And therefore, Madam Speaker, as we process this bill, let us bear in mind that this is a bill that is being promoted by the citizens themselves. Madam Speaker, the people who appeared before us made very strong observations that in such a bill, the government should not expend money in promoting such a bill, and that should purely be a task that should be undertaken by the people of Kenya. Madam Speaker, going back to the observations of the committee, Madam Speaker, we made a number of observations that point to this bill as being very progressive, especially to the counties. Madam Speaker, some of the clauses that we picked include the amendments to Article 203, where the resources that are being sent to counties are going to increase from 15% to 35%. We also picked out the proposed amendments to Article 202 of the Constitution, where when we are dealing with shareable revenue, we will no longer be looking at the accounts as audited by the National Assembly, but we look at the accounts audited by the Auditor General and delivered to the National Assembly. We did a simulation, Madam Speaker, and we realized that if next year we use this new formula, the counties will benefit by having an increase in allocation from the current 370 billion to 570 billion. However, Madam Speaker, there are a number of clauses that we found to be very problematic, where we have made recommendations that there should be some legislative intervention by Parliament. Madam Speaker, in clause 13, the format of nominating candidates to fill up special seats so as to meet the 2/3 gender rule has been changed from the number of seats won by a particular political party to the number of votes garnered by a political party. In fact, Madam Speaker, the clause that is most problematic is the proposed amendment to Article 97, subclause 4, which says that the candidates for special seats will comprise candidates who stood for election under clause 1A, with precedence being given to those who receive the greatest number of votes. Madam Speaker, we debated this article and even tried to involve the experts to give us some light, but we were not able to get very clear answers. Because the question is, Madam Speaker, what happens to people who come from counties that have low populations, where the registered voters are not, don't have huge numbers? I know that some counties are well endowed with the number of registered voters, but there are others that really are very few registered voters. And a good example is the Lamu East constituency that has 18,000 registered voters compared to our constituency in Nairobi that has over 234. So this particular clause that is trying to address issues of gender is problematic, and we have made a proposal in our report that it should be relooked with the legislation being passed to ensure that this particular article is given some clarity. Madam Speaker, on the recomposition of the executive, the committee had no problem with the new arrangement where we'll have seats of Prime Minister and Deputy Prime Ministers. The only observation we made under Article 151A is that there seemed to be a systematic campaign to render this House irrelevant. Because, Madam Speaker, if you see the proposed Article 151, the Prime Minister will only oversee the legislative agenda of the government in the National Assembly. And the Senate has got no power to summon the Prime Minister to appear before this House and answer any questions on behalf of the government. We also found it to be a bit clear that the impeachment of the Prime Minister will be dealt with to conclusion by the National Assembly, unlike the case for the President and the Deputy President, which starts from the National Assembly but finds its way to the Senate. So we have made a very strong observation, Madam Speaker, that there is a sustained campaign by some people to weaken the powers of the Senate. And we have proposed that going forward, we need to look for interventions to ensure that this House is not rendered moribund. Madam Speaker, we also did consider something that we thought is really a big clawback on accountability, and we made a very strong finding as a committee that that is a very undesirable, highly undesirable state of affairs. Madam Speaker, Clause 29 proposes to delete the power given to the National Assembly to vet cabinet ministers. And Madam Speaker, the view of the committee was that whereas it may not be necessary or even desirable to vet cabinet secretaries or cabinet ministers who are elected members of parliament, the non-elected members who will be appointed to the cabinet ought to be vetted. And the view of the committee is that since government will now be domiciled in the National Assembly, instead of deleting that power of vetting, Madam Speaker, that power should have been transferred to the Senate. Madam Speaker, the other clause that we took issue with is clause 32, which is again proposing to amend Article 154(2). Madam Speaker, for reasons that were not clear to us as a committee, there is now a proposal to amend the powers of National Assembly to vet the secretary to the cabinet. That has been deleted. The implication is that henceforth, you will just read in the newspaper that the president has appointed secretary to the cabinet. There was a very strong view, Madam Speaker, now that the executive, again, as I've said, will be domiciled in the National Assembly. This is power that ought to have been transferred to the Senate, because bicameral parliament is about balance of power between the two houses. The third one was clause 33, which again is proposing to amend Article 155 by removing totally the power of National Assembly to vet persons who are appointed to positions of permanent secretaries. Again, Madam Speaker, we were saying this removes the issue of accountability. The doctrine of separation of powers and limited government is that the executive should have the power to appoint, but also Parliament should retain the power to scrutinize the suitability of persons who are picked to occupy some of these positions. So as we stand today, the BBI has proposed that there will be no vetting at all of permanent secretaries. We were of the view, Madam Speaker, that this is power that ought to have been given to the Senate, and there should not have been this blanket deletion of these vetting powers. Madam Speaker, there was a clause that was invited a lot of debate, and this is the first time you will find us using a very strong term, declaring a particular clause in this BBI as being unconstitutional. And Madam Speaker, that is clause 43. Clause 43, which is proposing an amendment to Article 172 by introducing clause 172(1)(ca). Madam Speaker, we had a long debate, and Madam Speaker, we looked at the history this country has gone through in trying to build an independent and professional judiciary. And we made reference to the Kregler report, where it was pointed out that part of the reasons why we had post-election violence in 2007 is because Kenyans had lost confidence in that institution of the judiciary. Madam Speaker, we also looked at the best international standards, including the Latimer House principles on the independence of the judiciary, Madam Speaker. And we took issue with this clause, and I wish to read. Madam Speaker, clause 172(ca) says that Judicial Service Commission will receive complaints against the judges, investigate them, then discipline judges by warning them, reprimanding them, and suspending a judge. Madam Speaker, we took very strong exception on this clause, and our report has made a pronouncement that this particular clause should be termed unconstitutional, and if we had powers, it should be deleted from the BBI report. Madam Speaker,
there's a point of order from Senator from Bungoma. Now, there is the sharing of the microphone.
Where is
Can
the
we?
sanitizer? I have to go there. Gusia, you must hang around here to do this all the time. Madam Speaker, I'm following with very keen interest what my distinguished learned friend and learned junior, senior counsel, is saying. Very, very pertinent points. He has been a co-chair of the committee. He has cited several provisions, clauses, and issues in the report where he say unconstitutional, unreasonable, untenable, and so on. But he's not telling us what the committee wants us to do, because how do they affect the fundamentals of the bill? Because if a provision is found as a fact by the committee as unconstitutional or unreasonable or overbearing, and the committee does not tell the House what they want us to do, then they have not gone far enough. Lastly, how does he, as our chair, and the members in the committee, the minority leader who left, Senator Mutula, is still here, how do they reconcile these findings that are so important, with the adage now all over, can't amend, won't amend, will not amend, pass as is, where is, conveyor belt, rubber stamp, all these things being said about what we should do with this bill. We want to benefit from the industry of the committee, so that at the end of the day, we vote from an informed position. Some of us who are always in a hurry to speak have held back to hear this industry from the committee before we come in to speak.
Thank you, Senator. I see another point of order from Senator Wambua, but listening to the chair of the committee, he has actually talked of how to cure two. That's the last one that he has not cured. So if we listen carefully, I think he seems to have cured two of them already. Yeah, Senator Wambua? But he has not completed his
Madam
submission
Speaker,
yet. So
Madam Speaker, I really would hate to be the person to interrupt the presentation by the senior counsel, and I actually even told him that one of the reasons why I'm seated here is to learn from him and understand how to deal with this. Madam Speaker, I am in the same position that my leader, Senator Mbugoma, is in. Once you make it in black and white that a section of what we are dealing with is unconstitutional, and you put it in writing, Madam Speaker, how do you cure that? And then you proceed to say, pass. Madam Speaker, I'm listening, I will sit back and listen, but just as he does it, it will be very important that he provides a cure to this mischief, because it's a lot of it. It's a lot of mischief. He should provide the cure, the commission should provide the cure, so that as we come to debate, then we debate from a position of information.
Thank you.
I thank you, Madam Speaker.
Last point of order from Senator Cherargei. Please take note, Chair of the committee, so you can respond to those.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Madam Speaker. Maybe I have listened to the chair, and as the chair emeritus, Madam Speaker, is that in the presentation that he's making in the report, he has said the committee findings. And I don't know whether Senator Were is distracting our chair, or is consulting Madam Speaker, that in the findings, he is finding that it is unreasonable, it is unconstitutional, it is not captured very well. So the question is the chair giving us findings, then later he can still come back with that findings, because if you have declared something unreasonable and unconstitutional, it does not have a cure, because it will just remain as is. So I think, Madam Speaker, the chair should go ahead after the findings. What was the committee way forward, or what are the determination of the committee? Because I've read the report, and I want to say this with a lot of respect. I don't know, I have heard the chair whether he's extrapolating, but hearing and reading the findings are two different things, unless he's just explaining, because the findings are not in tandem with what the chair is submitting. I thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you. Another point of order from Senator Wamatangi. Then finally, Senator Lokorio. And let's be very specific so that
Madam Speaker,
the chair can be able to.
Yeah, Madam Speaker, if I could just raise mine from here. Mine, Madam Speaker, is close to what my colleagues have raised. And the chair referred us to page 88 of the report. And at that time, he had told us that they had a very robust discussion on the point as to whether this bill satisfies the requirement that it is through a popular initiative. And then he referred us to that paragraph in 88 and said that the second characteristic that binds the two forms of citizen-initiated referendums is that they occur against the wishes of either government or parliament. Now, Chair did not tell us what was their finding after having received this presentation and them having accepted it and published it. Did they settle then that the bill satisfies that criteria?
Thank you, Senator Petronina.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Mine is just to urge my colleagues to hold their horses. He's giving us findings, where after findings, he will give us recommendations. So once we reach recommendations and he doesn't seem to be giving us a solution to those findings, then we can ask. So let us wait for him to finish his report, his motion moving. Is he moving? No, his contribution to the report, then we can ask him.
Thank you, Senator Were. I was almost there because I think there is a lot that is still on. So if we can allow it, Senator Sakaja, you have a different view?
Yes, Madam Speaker, and that's the reason why earlier I had sought direction, which the substantive speaker did not give, as to at what point and to what extent I can be able to give the members the minority view. Because the questions the members are asking are captured to some extent in the minority report, which addresses the emphatic declaration by the Committee on Constitutionality, Madam Speaker. So it would have been good order, because members will contribute, and the chair's presentation is giving information to members, on what happened. It would be good for us also, Madam Speaker, after the chair has finished, to hear the contrary view on emphatic proclamations of unconstitutionality, so that when members then debate, they can be able to have both sides of the coin in that respect, Madam Speaker. So that direction was not given to the Speaker. And I asked yesterday at House Business, I've asked twice today, and again now I'm asking you, Madam Speaker, as being on the chair, if for good order.
Thank you, Senator. Let's allow the chair to complete the presentation. Senator Kangata, you are going to be the first one anyway in the order after the chair, according to what you all demanded, that it must be first come, first serve. So I think you should be able to. We'll consult on the issue of Sakaja, but you have your 20 minutes. I know what you are requesting for was to have extra time. But if you are prioritizing, yes, we can relook at the prioritizing. But if members agree that I can skip 4 and go to you. Thank you. So we are okay. We'll take care of that. Chair,
thank you.
Please finish.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Your microphone out, Sakaja, Senator Sakaja.
Thank you.
Can somebody switch it off for him? Yeah, thank you.
Follow off the list.
No, we are okay. We'll take care of that. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. First, Madam Speaker, I started by giving the first answer to the questions being asked by Senator Wetangula, in that there was a finding, and I'm answering both Senator Wamatangi and Senator Wetangula, that once the committee made a finding that this is a popular initiative under Article 257, I did state that we are of the view that we can amend issues of form, but not substance, which will take away the wishes of the people of Kenya. That is the first solution. The second solution is that this report has arrived at a finding that clauses that are unconstitutional can be subjected to litigation in a court of law to declare them as being unconstitutional. The third one, Madam Speaker, if you read the recommendations, of Madam Speaker, I want to refer members to the observation on the area I was on, that is on the independence of the judiciary. Madam Speaker, if you look at paragraph 67, this is the recommendation that the committee has made to the House. This can be found at page 168, and I wish to read, if you permit me.
The committee found that the proposed amendments to Article 172 is a clawback provision in light of the current provisions on the judiciary, particularly those that guarantee the independence of the judiciary and also provide security of tenure for judges. For these reasons, the committee found that the proposed amendment to Article 172 is unconstitutional and will require urgent reconsideration at the appropriate time. That's the proposal of the committee. So Madam Speaker,
Honorable Senators, I do want us to give, taking one paragraph after the other, because we'll all get opportunities to speak. But if we give responding to one paragraph after the other, just read what the committee, because what he has done is nothing but to read what the committee said. And he cannot change the report at this stage.
Gusia.
Senator Wetangula, I'm giving you only 1 minute because he has not said anything except to read what the committee said, and we are not telling him to change what the committee says.
Madam Speaker, we have been part of this process, and we want it to get to a conclusion that is helpful to everybody. When a house is legislating, there is a presumption that what you are legislating is constitutional. How can we say, Madam Speaker, that this is unconstitutional, we will pass it, but it can be, let it be challenged in court at an appropriate time? Madam Speaker, that amounts to abdication of responsibility. And I would want to urge, Madam Speaker, because Senator Omogeni is a very fine lawyer, no doubt. He's been our chair of the Law Society. Senator Orengo is senior, Mutula Kilonzo, mercurial. Madam Speaker, they will help this House a lot more, particularly for colleagues who have no legal training background, to understand that you cannot bring a legislation and tell the House this provision is an assault on the Constitution, is an affront on the Constitution, is a clawback on the Constitution, but pass it, let somebody challenge it in court. Madam Speaker, this is what we are grappling with. And on this, Madam Speaker, in debate, a point of order can be raised at any moment. It cannot be predicated on the totality of the member on the floor saying. Where he veers off the track, we have the right to move in. Where he sidesteps, we have the right to move in. And we are not doing this because we want to derail debate. We want to have a good constitution to help this country.
Senator Masitsa Naomi Sionga.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I just want to do an extension of on what Senator Wetangula has said. Some extent, yeah. Madam Speaker, most of us, as they have said, we are interacting with this report for the first time. And that's why we are keen sitting here listening, because we are representative of the people. If we interact with the report as it's being laid on the ground, we are interacting directly with the report because we want to understand it more. If we wait for the chair to finish and then we interact it more, we might be left out somewhere. So give us time, if possible, to interact with it as it continues so that we get it. Some of us, we do not have background, legal background, as he's saying. So we want to learn more and know that what we are being taught here can really go into our minds and do something as a change to this constitution. Thank you, Madam.
Thank you.
Speaker.
There is a point of order from Senator Langat on Zoom. He's on Zoom. Senator Langat. Okay, while we are waiting for Senator Langat, point of order from Senator Orengo.
Mr. Speaker, I come on a point of order. I just had the distinguished senator from Bungoma talking about issues that how can you pass something that you've already declared to be unconstitutional. And I think it's predicated on not the correct understanding with respect, because, for example, Madam Speaker, if I was amending an ordinary legislation, if there are provisions that are unconstitutional, then normally the Speaker, even without approving that bill or even bring it to the floor for discussion, you would say without amending the Constitution, you would not be able to prosecute that bill because on the face of it is unconstitutional. But where you are amending the Constitution, on the face of the provisions that are there, it may be unconstitutional. But if you amend it, because the people may want to do whatever they want to do with the Constitution, they can amend anything, including saying we cease to be a republic. If the people of Kenya can say we don't want to be a republic, and there is no provision of the Constitution that is not amendable by the people. Parliament may not amend some, but the people can amend anything. So long as there's an amendment to the Constitution by the people, you really can't stop them. But then, you remember, Madam Speaker, I was talking about the foundational values, that the only recourse that you have, and there are decided cases in India, that when you amend and you're moving out from the structure, the basic structure of the Constitution, then the courts can stop you. But we don't have similar jurisdiction and jurisprudence in Kenya. So I must say that whereas I sympathize with Senator Wetangula, but you would find in a lot of those parts of the report, the experts themselves were saying, this provision that if you amend it, it will be unconstitutional because if the provisions remain the way they are, without amending certain provisions, then they will be unconstitutional. That's why they were saying in regard to the schedule that because we have not amended certain sections of Article 89, then it will be unconstitutional or it will not be properly anchored. So I beg to disagree a little bit that it is unfortunate. You know, in South Africa, they had this process when they had the Constitutional Assembly, where it was not just Parliament. After amending, the amendment was taken to the Constitutional Court to determine whether your amendment as a Parliament or as a Constituent Assembly complies with the foundational values, and with the basic concept of the Constitution. Unfortunately, in Kenya, we don't have it. And if you read the experts, where there was something unconstitutional, they said it. But they said if you amend it, then you constitutionalize it. And I think that's there in the report.
Yeah, before we get information from Senator Kilonzo, let's go to Senator Langat. I think he came in. Senator Langat.
I tend to think that, as James Orengo has said, it is very important for us to ventilate at every stage, either through point of orders or points of information. Because remember, Madam, we are being watched by the public that we are representing. And our contribution will also shed light that will make an informed decision during even referendum. So it is so important that we ventilate more at every stage, very retrogressive and unconstitutional areas of this particular bill, so that it can help not only us who are in the House, and maybe some of us who don't have the background on the legal perspective, but it will also help those who are watching us down there in the villages that we are representing and give them more information. So I really support that we ventilate it thorough in every stage, and we should not hurry. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Kilonzo Mutula Jr. Point of order.
Yes, it's information.
It was information to who?
To Senator Wetangula and and Senator Wambua.
Senator
But it's also a point of order.
Okay.
Yeah.
Senator Wetangula is not interested in any information.
Yeah, but it's also on a point of order.
Let us proceed on
yes.
this point of order first.
And let me start. This morning, Senator Wetangula said that people should read this report. The non-lawyers will take less time, and the lawyers will take less, the non-lawyers will take a little shorter time. Madam Speaker, I'd like to point members to page 100 of the report, paragraph 369. Yes, that's why I said it's information, but it's also a point of order. The committee considered what in other jurisdictions is called unconstitutional constitutional amendments. And you'll find the findings of the committee here. So while making findings on unconstitutionality of some of the clauses, it is addressed here. So I'm trying to assist. Now, in this report too, and I would like you to turn to page 123, where we were looking at the jurisdiction of Parliament. Now, in the case that we have cited here, and is a provision in the Constitution of India, and it reads as follows. For the removal of doubts, it is hereby declared there shall be no limitation whatsoever on the constituent power of Parliament to amend by way of addition, variation, repeal the provisions of this Constitution under this article. So in making this comparative jurisdiction, we were looking for security of a similar provision of doing the same when we are here. So I'm informing members that the committee also considered these issues. So once you, and I'm trying to help Senator Shionga, who has said they're non-lawyers. This is what the committee was trying to do, so that it answers part of the queries. So that then in terms of the debate, we are able to say, do we have a similar provision like the ones in India? That's one. And two, what do you do with and what you consider an unconstitutional constitutional amendment at this stage, and what happens when it goes to the public? Those concerns are also raised here in a very succinct manner. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Order, senators. There is a point of order from Senator Nderitu. John Kinyua.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Yeah. I'm following closely what Senator Chair for the Legal, Senator Fonyamira, is saying. But, Madam Speaker, it would be more informing if, after he finishes, we can hear the report of the minority leader, or we can hear from Senator Sakaja, so that we can compare and get the gist of the matter, Madam Speaker. Because, as they said, as it is said, Madam Speaker, it will be better for us now. Once I'm following closely. The reason, Madam Chair, I'm saying this. Madam Chair, the reason I'm saying this is because you said after Senator Okongo Omogeni, you said the person that will follow is Senator Kangata. So I was just requesting so that we can compare, Madam Speaker. We can compare the two reports and we can be more informed, Madam Speaker.
Senator Kinyua, order. I think I have given assurance to Senator Sakaja that both of them are priority contributors. So we'll still start with Senator Kangata, and we'll get the reasons of the minority report. So the two are flowing. So there is no problem. The next point of order is from Senator Nyamunga Rose. I have a list of points of order.
Yeah, mine is very simple, Madam Speaker. In the foregoing circumstances and from the mood of the House, I think we should have done a brief kamkunji before we got into this debate, because there are too many questions of concern to us. And if something is unconstitutional and it is amending a constitution, Whereas we should have been put in a position that we understand some of these things before we get into the main debate, Madam Speaker. That is just my view.
Thank you. Point of order from Senator Wambua Enoch. Then Kimani Wamatangi.
Madam Speaker,
You'll be next after that.
you remember the initial point of order that was raised on this matter was on the issue of when a committee, in writing, Madam Speaker, these are not mere words, it's in writing, writes and says that this provision is unconstitutional. And I know that Senator Sakaja has a different view on that matter. But one of the main report of the committee says this matter is unconstitutional. How do we, as leaders, proceed to pass an unconstitutional provision and assume that the public will cure that mischief when it goes to the referendum? How would that be cured?
Thank you, Senator. Remember, we are posing this question so that the chair can respond. So please let's not repeat any of them because he's writing them down. He will be able to respond. If you have anything different, Senator Wamatangi. Senator Wamatangi. And let's try to avoid going for debate.
Yes,
I know you have requested to give points of order, which I have allowed,
Yep.
but let's avoid the debate because you have your 20 minutes inter.
Okay, Madam Speaker, my point of order, and I understood what the chair was saying earlier, actually, when in response to what Senator Wetangula had raised, when he tried to explain the limitations that the committee faced when they were considering the latitude, the legal latitude they could employ in dealing with a popular initiative. But my question would be then, because in that explanation, Chair, you have said then that in dealing with then that unconstitutionalism, that then the remedy would be some people going to court. Then at what point, at what point is the committee, or did the committee envisage that that remedy would be found by going to court?
Thank you, Senator Moses Wetangula. And please let's take the shortest time. I wish that he responds before we rise in 15 minutes.
It's already
so
done.
that he doesn't forget what
Thank
he
you,
has
Madam
given him.
Speaker.
Yes.
I want the chair and Senator Mutula Kilonzo and the minority leader to remember the words of Kathy Kilonzo, that if the input is illegitimate, the outcome can't be legitimate. If the input is illegitimate, the outcome can't be legitimate. What made me rise on a point of order that has led to this flurry of points of order was a statement from the chair, and he's honest because he was reading from the report, that this matter is unconstitutional, and he ended up by compounding it even worse by saying that those aggrieved may have to go to court after we pass an unconstitutional amendment. And what Mutula has come to say, Senator from Makueni, even compounds the difficulties that we find ourselves in. Because, Madam Speaker, he has said that in India, what he was quoting, you debate, you consider, and you legislate. What we are doing here, we are neither considering, nor debating, nor legislating. We are just a conveyor belt. We have been told so. We must pass as is where is. So we are telling the committee that the conclusions they have made are grossly inconsistent with what they're telling us as a House to do, and that they could have done better, and we need to pass this amendment, but let's not pass an amendment and go down in history in ignominy as a House of Parliament that did something that jurisprudence will be sneering at every twist and turn. We want Senator Mogeni as you go through your treatise from the committee, to help this House understand. Because I do not believe that what is unconstitutional becomes constitutional simply because you have passed it. It can't be, Madam Speaker.
I will. Honorable members, you know we did not extend the sitting. We are going to adjourn at 6:30. By the chair of the committee, we are going to add the time that we have taken because I don't think...
How much time?
He has 5 minutes if we were to finish, but we spend about 20 minutes. We spend about 20 minutes of his time, not really doing points of order, but explaining, asking for clarifications. Yes. So let's allow him to finish, and then tomorrow he will still have 20 minutes.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Senator Cherarkei, and please let's ask points of order. Point of order. Let's not seek explanations now because we have the time tomorrow.
Madam Speaker, maybe it escaped my attention, but you are telling the chair to conclude, but you have not given him direction to respond to our earlier clarifications, because you are saying he still has 20 minutes.
No, it's okay. He's okay. He has taken all
yeah,
the
and then he should respond before proceeding into other aspects, because he should not be in a hurry. We will listen.
That's not a point of order. It's like you are directing the chair. The chair is okay with that. Senator Mwaura, your point of order, and let it be a real point of order, please.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, is it not in order for us to allow the candor of the chair of the committee with regards to the real findings of his committee in this report? Why? Because Senator Orengo said that as and when this BBI, constitutional amendment bill was with the county assemblies, it was a draft bill. And then when it comes to the parliament, it then becomes a proper bill to the people. Now, if that then is the case, parliament amends bills. Then he goes ahead to make a conclusion that as per Article 257, we have no powers to amend. So what is this inconsistency that we are hearing? So I think what I would ask, that is it not in order that we just listen to the report of the chair, but of course with the understanding that because even if it's unconstitutional, we have nothing to do, he's just highlighting what then cannot be done by this parliament. And in that case, Madam Speaker, if you look at the promoters of this bill, they say that this is a constitutional consensus. Now, this is a cocktail, therefore, Madam Speaker. And if you take juice and you are taking a cocktail from different fruits, it's sweet, yes, but you'll find some lump inside that juice. You can't say the juice is not sweet. I thank you.
Thank you. Senator Mogeni, you have 5 minutes plus 20 minutes that will spill to tomorrow.
You know, Madam Speaker, there are some matters we cannot run away from. I began by stating to this House that this committee, Madam Speaker, I started by saying that this committee made a serious inquiry as to whether this is a bill under Article 257 initiated by the people of Kenya, or it's a bill initiated by Parliament under Article 256. And Madam Speaker, each finding had consequences. If we had found that this was a bill under Article 256, then it would not be a bill that carries with it the supremacy of the people of Kenya. But Madam Speaker, the moment the committee made a finding that this is a bill under Article 257, of the Constitution of Kenya, then it becomes the property of the people of Kenya, and this House has got no role in amending it. That is the finding of the committee. And that's what we have before us in the House. So if we begin by understanding, Madam Speaker, that that is the finding of the committee, then things will be easier for us. Everything else is an observation that was being made by our committee. If, on the other hand, the committee had made a finding that this House has powers to amend, then I would have come with proposals to amend. So we were told by experts, and it's in the report here, that where we have issues as to an article in the Constitution that does not have clarity, the recourse is to go to a court of law and seek an interpretation. And Madam Speaker, we have done so as a House. We have gone to court on several occasions, seeking interpretation on some articles of the Constitution that are not clear. So I know that there could be some of us, my friends, honorable senators, who are of the view that under Article 257, you can amend a bill that has been brought under Article 257. Madam Speaker, with tremendous respect, I don't have those answers. What I have is the findings of the committee that bills to amend the Constitution initiated by the people with signatures, in this case 3 million signatures, this House has got no powers to amend. But if I'm wrong, somebody can seek a ruling from the Speaker if the committee is wrong, or somebody can go to court and seek an interpretation. And Madam Speaker, I'm telling you, if I get an interpretation from court that says we can amend, I'll be the first one to move amendments to this bill. But as long as I don't have that guidance, Madam Speaker, I have to respect the provisions that are in our Constitution. So, Madam Speaker, I think that is the answer to all the point of orders that I've received this afternoon. So I beg to proceed, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, the next observation, Madam Speaker, is the article that deals with the Ombudsman, the Judiciary Ombudsman. Is that another point of order?
This clarification, Senator Wambua, we don't have anything called clarification. It's only a point of order, and please refer to what is not in order.
Yes, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I just want to find out from Senator Omogeni, out of that presentation, so what he's telling us members and the nation is that the outcome of this process in the Senate is inconsequential in as far as the next move is concerned. I want him to come out clearly and tell this nation that whatever we are doing here is inconsequential. It doesn't matter what we do, how we vote, or even if we don't vote. The next move this bill will just move to the next level. That would be important, Madam Speaker.
Honorable senators, 1 minute for Senator Kangata.
Yeah, two issues, Madam Speaker. One, I seek your direction that tomorrow, as you had rightly stated, that after he's done, I can come after him immediately. That is number one. Number two, it is also, I'll be seeking the chair also to clarify to members that currently there are two different bills that are being considered, which are very different in the National Assembly and in the Senate. And what is the effect of that? We would want him to tell us what is the effect of the fact that the bill which is here, which is IBC certified, differs with the one that is in the National Assembly. Thank you.
Now, that was not a point of order. It's some new information we have never had in this House.
No, it is in the report.
The last point of order is from Senator Halake, and you have only 30 seconds.
Oops. Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, the points of orders are becoming disorderly, and I think this is now becoming, we've sat here the whole afternoon. Is it in order for members to just, why not have it's frivolous, because really we need to make sure. Yes, it is. Madam Speaker, the points of orders are becoming points of disorders.
Thank you, Senator. I think for the 1 second that is that is remaining, I just want to inform the House that you'll have a chance tomorrow to use your 20 minutes. Please use your 20 minutes wisely, so that you are able to get the points across. Thank you, honorable senators.
The list remains, it's changed.
It is now 6:30 p.m. Time to interrupt the business of the Senate. The House therefore stands adjourned until tomorrow, Thursday, 29th April 2021 at 10 a.m. and the chair will have 20 minutes to finalize.
What's your point of order, Senator Murkomen? Yeah.
Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, I feel even before Senator Faria moves the motion she's moving, you had already made a communication that each senator has 20 minutes. Mr. Speaker, sorry, when you are online, you are on this thing called virtual, sometimes you miss some communication. The Speaker, if you had made a communication that is 10, she's moving a motion that it is 10, I have a problem with that. And I had said as much. That, Mr. Speaker, this is just once in a lifetime opportunity for us to discuss a very serious matter. Mr. Speaker, we can even be up to midnight the next day, for 2 days, for 3 days. We're discussing a constitution that took 20 years to be made, Mr. Speaker, that many people lost their lives fighting for. So, Mr. Speaker, I really feel like we should not allow Senator Faria to proceed in
why
that
can't
direction.
we have a seconder first, then then you can. Let's have a second.
I was trying to help Senator Faria not to go to that direction.
I understand that you have come very fast from member boot, but
I beg to move and
yes, who is seconding?
I beg to move and request Senator Pareno to second.
The right for 10 minutes. Is it 10 minutes?
Mr. Speaker, I second.
Okay. Okay, order, members. I propose the question, which is that notwithstanding the provisions of Standing Order 1064, pursuant to Standing Order 1061, the Senate resolves that each senator shall be limited to speak for not more than 10 minutes on the motion at order number 1 in the order paper provided at the mover, the Senate Minority Leader, and the chairperson of the Standing Committee on Justice, Legal Affairs, and Human Rights shall speak for not more than 30 minutes. Senator Wetangula.
Can you sanitize the microphone? Yes. Mr. Speaker, I oppose this motion. And I want to urge the leadership, Mr. Speaker, both the majority and the minority, that we should resist any temptation, act, or omission that entrenches the feeling that we are a rubber stamp. Mr. Speaker, these documents that we have all participated in getting them to where they are have far-reaching effects on our country. And we are the leaders. We are the representatives of the millions of Kenyans out there. I want to urge, Mr. Speaker, that we give members time and room to ventilate on this matter so that we can enrich the thinking of Kenyans. To come here, Mr. Speaker, you have gazetted special sitting for 2 days. We have missed out the morning for reasons we understand because we needed the documents and we have gone through them. We have lost an hour in the afternoon because of the conduct of the state on Senator Linturi. And now we are left with an hour and a half or so, and tomorrow. You can very well, Mr. Speaker, gazette even next week, so that we speak to this document, even if we'll vote differently, but we must put our views on record for posterity. Because, Mr. Speaker, we are touching and affecting the lives of each and we must tell Kenyans why we are doing so. We have already been told repeatedly by some young politicians out there that we have no right to question, that we are rubber stamps, that we are conveyor belts, that not even a comma, that whatever. If that is the case, the adage of Parliament remains, have your way, let me have my say. And that's what we should give Kenyans, Mr. Speaker, and allow us, give the majority leader, the minority leader, the usual 1 hour, and I suggest that you give us 20 minutes for some members. Some of us will require about 40 minutes so that we can ventilate on this matter as seriously and as exhaustively as we can. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to urge, Mr. Speaker, in fact, in the interest of saving time, and in the interest of making progress, and in the interest of telling Kenyans what we are doing, that the senator who has moved the motion abandons it so that it collapses as if it was never there in the first place.
Order, senators. Since this is a procedural motion and is a voice, it's a noise vote. Order, you know, you are already eating into the time you are asking for. So let me put the question. You take a vote, so that then you can even have 50 minutes. I have no problem. So I now put the question, which is that notwithstanding the provisions of Standing Order 1064, pursuant to Standing Order 1061, the Senate resolves that each senator shall be limited to speak for not more than 10 minutes on the motion at order number 1 in the order paper, provided that the mover, the Senate Minority Leader, and the chairperson of the Standing Committee on Justice, Legal Affairs, and Human Rights shall speak for not more than 30 minutes. As many of that opinion say aye. As many of country review say nay. Nay. The noes have it, therefore you will have your leader. Majority Leader. This has been sanitized. Okay, Leader, as you move, what that ruling means is that now we go back to Standing Order number 106, where the leader has 60 minutes, the seconder 60 minutes, the chair 60 minutes, and the rest of you 20 minutes. Proceed, Senator Leader of Majority.
Point of order.
What's your point of order, Senator Sakaja?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, I'd urge that you're able to listen. Mr. Speaker, we appreciate that you've clarified that now we go back to the status quo, where the leader of majority and the seconder have an hour, and the chair of the committee has 30 minutes. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to request, because the reason the chair of the committee has 30 minutes is because he's led this process very ably, and he has penned a report. Mr. Speaker, I also have a minority report that is informing the debate. So, Mr. Speaker, I urge that I get, while the chair might need 30, I would need just 60 minutes, Mr. Speaker. 60 minutes is 1 hour to move the minority report.
Order.
To give context, or at the very least, Chair, as I finish, to be treated as equally as the chair in terms of the time given, so that members can understand the different perspective in the minority report. So, Chair, I'm requesting you